Welcome back to episode 9 of Overreaction Time. I'm your host, Earl Smith, and my tag team partner, Scott Green, is right over here.
What's going on, guys?
It's 9 episodes, enough to field a baseball team. Um, Pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't the designated hitter,
Yeah, exactly. So, what we're going to talk about today is NCAA sites, past and then hopefully future and prospective sites. So, going to give some insight about the ones we've been to, which ones were good, which ones weren't so good, and what we'd like to see in the future. So, I have Engel as media member and fan, and Coach Green, has been coaching for most of these. So, he can add some color as far as, some things that most of you probably don't think about. So, I'm going to start off with the first one that I ever went to. It's kind of irrelevant for this conversation, but 2007, Auburn Hills, Michigan, the Palace, which no longer exists, so that's not going to be a further option. But that was kind of out in the middle of nowhere with not a lot of stuff going on. So I didn't think it was that great of a site. It was a cool tournament for me for my first one, but not the greatest host site in the world.
Yeah, I think there's the right ingredients for a good site, in my opinion, are in a walkable city where you can kind of get to the arena either by public transportation or walking, preferably walking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you put it out in the suburbs or somewhere, that's got a bunch of parking lots around it. And I think there's part of that fans do enjoy, right? You can drive there and park in the parking lot. And kind of get there. But I think it loses some of its charm. It's kind of like a wrestling palooza, right? It's not just going to like a Rolling Stones concert at night. You're going to a music festival. So you want to have other things to do around you, and there's going to be breaks in the action. So sites that are out of a major city, to me, have a little bit of a disadvantage to them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's probably a product of a lot of the buildings at that time in different sports. They kind of put them out in the suburbs away from everything. And then
Yep.
maybe a decade later, they started bringing them back into the cities.
Which
So,
is good.
yeah.
I think for all sports, it's a good change.
So the next year, actually next 2 years, St. Louis, they also hosted 2012, 2015, 2017, 2021. So that's kind of for longtime NCAA tournament goers. It's kind of the home away from home. It's the city that everybody kind of knows where everything's at. You know where to expect. Um, Generally decent as far as you mentioned. Walking or public transportation between your hotels and stuff. I think
Yep.
maybe one criticism I've heard is that over the years it's kind of went downhill as far as restaurants and stuff like that. You do have Ballpark Village right next to Busch Stadium, which is pretty cool. But aside from that, there's not as much downtown.
No, St. Louis is great. You can't go wrong. It's kind of like the default site in a lot of ways. It's got pretty good. And one thing you're looking at as coaches is how easy is the city to get to, right? Are you going to be on two connecting flights like when you are going to Fargo in high school, or things like that? Is there competitive airports and things that you can figure out that are easier for your athletes to travel to and from? So I think St. Louis being a major hub, being a big city, I don't really have a ton of criticisms of it. I think it does a pretty good job. And then obviously the arena makes a difference too. And that's what you always think about when you hear like, well, let's expand the tournament. Well, we're kind of at capacity right now, or maybe over it in terms of the number of the matches that you have, the number of matches that are going, the the space under the arena, like all those different things are things that maybe fans don't see, but are important to athletes and coaches. And I've always had a pretty good experience in St. Louis.
Yeah, and to build off of that, I went and looked at some of Tony Rotundo's old pictures from St. Louis, and they had lots of room on the floor as far as
Yeah,
from a media standpoint. You had 2 rows of seating on the long sides and then end zone
right.
seating as well. I think we've seen some of the sites in recent years super duper tight where the people working the tables, if they were to push out their chair, they're hitting the back wall. So there's
100%.
not a lot of
Yeah,
floor space there.
right. That's important.
Um,
It's cost us matches. I mean, everybody remembers
mhm.
the Ben Pazook robbery, because of the tightness on the floor. So, but it's not the only time that's ever happened that way. Yeah.
So we got 2010 Omaha. That was one. I've been told that they were going through citywide construction at that point, and it's much better as far as if you're coming for like the College World Series and stuff like that. So I know I was kind of out a little ways in a hotel somewhere. What I'll say is the building, in my opinion, was one of the loudest buildings
Hmm.
that I can remember. I don't know if it was because it was kind of the height of Iowa's 3 straight national titles and the proximity to Iowa, but some of the loudest crowd pops I heard were during that tournament, and I don't know, it seemed like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think some of those I guess the mid-major cities in the Midwest, it's kind of hit or miss. The they're building really nice arenas out there, so you sometimes are the beneficiary of that. But travel to and from can be challenging. Walkability again is going to be an issue for that. I don't know from a fan's perspective how Omaha was, but it's just I get a little worried when we start. I'm not going to say that we're settling for those because I think a lot of school places out there do a nice job with the event. But if we're gonna move in a forward direction, I think some of the cities that we have to be strategic in the cities that we plan our major events in. It's kind of like the Worlds are always in Eastern Europe, right? Which is great for them,
That's
but
right.
is it really advancing the sport at all? I love all the cities that I've gone to, but not being in a major city, I think there's some implications there.
All right, speaking of major cities, the next year was 2011, Philadelphia. First time it had been back to the East Coast in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
They also hosted in 2025, which I'm sure everybody remembers.
Yep.
Um, and their sports complex is kind of different, where it's in the city, but it's kind of away from everything. So you do have to either drive or take public transportation. Walking, unless you're at the casino, probably isn't
Yep.
an option for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And then I know you being a foodie, I think it's kind of cool that you have a food that's associated with the city. Obviously this
Yeah.
isn't that big of a deal, but it is fun when you're seeing people there, and it's like, hey, do you get a Philly cheesesteak? And they're saying where they went
100%.
and where, so
Yeah. There
yeah.
should be
What
some
do you
local
think of it?
flair, like especially as a fan, maybe going back as a fan moving forward. I'm going to be excited about those types of things. Like another big thing is it just about every team has a social too, right? So, proximity, like we were very, very fortunate, in Philadelphia to get a good social spot, but I know a lot of, schools struggled with that because there's not a lot close to the arena, and you really want to be close to the arena so that you can go there between sessions, gather with all your alums, and then get back there. And driving to that is not really tenable. So Philly, I think, had some issues with that. It was great for us because we had it right there at the Xfinity Center, and we had a lot of spillover from other schools into our socials. So, um, you know, uh, Philly's a great city, but it's two distinct different areas, where you want to be downtown and where all the hotels are, in the city itself, back in that area, and where the sports complexes are. I've done that before with other sports. I went to a Sweet 16 game there too and stayed in the city. And it's if you're afraid of public transportation, which I imagine a good chunk of our fan base is, Philly's not a great spot for you.
Yeah. And I personally loved it because it's about, without traffic, 3.5 hours from
Mm-hmm.
my
Yeah.
house, so it's easy trip. And I'm sure for you guys.
I think like sometimes too, I mean, think about this, like, right? Like what's the typical average? stadium seat 18, 20K
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the
in
event,
between there.
right? Let's be honest, like 15,000 is going to sell out every year, and 15,000 of those people are the same people that went the year before. It's not like you're
Yeah,
drawing for local walk-up traffic or anything like
yeah.
that. So dudes that are going to go to Omaha are going to go to Philly, and they're going to go wherever it is. So we're not like, oh my gosh, we have to have it in a geographic kind of epicenter to make sure we get a good crowd. It's going to sell out. So you're going to see the same people there. It's just you're in a different city. So I think that's important to recognize too.
All right, and kind of building off what you said about Omaha 2013 Des Moines, this was actually the only tournament during that span, aside from the COVID one in 2021, that I did not attend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll have to say, I guess when you're hearing the preview stuff on ESPN during the end of a basketball game, and they say, coverage this week from NCAA wrestling from Madison Square Garden, that sounds like something. When you hear coverage from Des Moines, it's I don't know.
Yeah.
It
No,
doesn't
no, no.
doesn't sound
There's
as
something.
impressive.
There's something to that, right? We'll talk about the Garden when we get there,
Yeah.
obviously, but yeah, you feel like you're sitting down to watch like the billiards championships on ESPN or something like that. There's a tremendous fan base in some of those cities, but like I said before, does that really affect the event? Is
Hmm.
there a lot of people from the local area that are getting tickets? I'd say probably not. So I don't know. I'm sure I know someone in or near Des Moines, and it's a great town. And I'm from Buffalo. It's not a major city, right? So I get that you got to spread that wealth around a little bit, but it's there is something to being in the world's most famous arena, being in major cities. The exposure that the sport gets is important.
All right. Next up was 2014 Oklahoma City. Um, I thought it was a pretty nice arena. You had the Bricktown area by it, as you mentioned. I don't. It's not one of your major Midwestern cities, so I'm sure there might have been some travel issues for some people getting there. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. It's kind of got the job done okay for me.
Sure. Yep. I don't know how much excitement was generated from going to Oklahoma City. As a coach, does it matter? No. As an athlete, does it matter? Not really. Maybe there's a little bit of worrying about tickets and getting your family there and everything like that. But I think that's stress is managed by coaching staffs and the NCAA pretty well. So yeah, I didn't. But it's not like jumping off the page for you.
Yeah. So then skipping ahead, 2016, New York City, Madison Square Garden. Um, it's funny from a media standpoint. You're under the building and on the floor and dealing with a lot of these people, and the garden employees. Those kind of what you would expect from New York, where some of the Midwestern cities, maybe if you have a roped off area and you need to use the bathroom and you want to go over there, one of these people will let you go somewhere you're not supposed to, or whatever. Madison Square Garden, they didn't care who you were, or whether you were a wrestling media guy or John Smith or whoever. They were going to tell you to get your ass over there or get your ass.
So here's the thing, and I've said this pretty plainly, and it'll never happen because it's not a major enough event for the Garden to want it every year. But if we could somehow have our pinnacle event, our NCAA championships, in the world's most famous arena in the most important city on the planet, who are we to be like, nah, we don't want that? The pitchers of beer are too expensive, right?
Mhm.
Like it's complete and utter nonsense to not want that, right? To be the at the and the other thing I always have argument with people is like, well, I just felt like so welcome in insert minor city here, and in New York it didn't even feel like they knew that wrestling was here. I'm like, yeah, they didn't.
Mhm.
And there's something awesome to that, right? you're not going to be. I mean, the hotel arrangements were awesome. They're right across the street, and so you're not going to beat the walkability of that area. You're not going to beat but it's like that old meme, like Willie Saylor. I can see him now, like in that, like, conservative guy who's afraid of big cities, like, costume that they put up on Facebook. Like, there's a lot of that in our community too. They're like, oh, they're not going to New York City, you know. But honestly, like, I've been to so many sporting events at the Garden, and like, kind of the hubris of our community to be like, well, that's not appropriate venue for the NCAA championships. I'm like, it's why we are where we are. You know, like, people don't think twice about paying hand over fist for a quarterfinal game for the Big East basketball tournament every year. And guess what? That's why basketball's thriving. So it's not the NCAA championships are not meant to cater to you. Okay. As a fan, like, there are people who the only ticket they can get is to go see UConn play Georgetown in the quarterfinals in their basketball fan. They're going, and they're going to the Garden, and it's an awesome experience. So I think we miss our mark there a lot. We're like, well, how is it affordable for a family of 10 to attend it if it's in New York City? And I'm like, well, there's other events you can go to too. You're not entitled to go to the NCAA championships every year. And we should have some prestige to that. It's kind of like someone saying, hey man, like, I just hate where the Super Bowl has become. My family went for years and now they can't go because the tickets are so well. Like, if we're going to be a big time sport, we got to play by big time rules. So anyone who didn't enjoy the Garden, I'm sorry. I'm sure it was rough. But what a wonderful opportunity and showcase for our sport to be there. And if they were ever like, hey, come back, we'd be foolish not to.
Yeah.
Ran over.
No, I don't know. I tried to help some friends get tickets for Cleveland this year, and they were absurd. And hotels, I looked around, hotel prices were absurd. So, kind of wherever you're going to hold these things and however getting in the door, it's going to be bad, whether it's New York City or Cleveland.
Sure.
And then changing.
You just got to wait for the resale market. Yeah.
Yeah. I do like when you're in a smaller city and you walk out and you go to a restaurant and you see over in the corner, there's, the Bucknell fans and there's the Minnesota fans. And, you have this, you see Kerry McCoy over there, for someone that's wrestling fan that's not, seeing these people all the time or seeing these groups of fans. It's fun.
Yeah. For sure.
But at the same time, some of these cities also don't do a good job of kind of having the personnel on hand to manage, a big rush after a round at the NCAAs. In New York City, they've got one of these events happening like almost every day at the Garden and every convention and everything else. So, you're not going to have to worry about that, or you have, 100,000 different options of food.
Getting out of sessions in Detroit at like 9:30 and every restaurant is closed on like a Friday night.
I walked from the arena to the hotel with Austin Summer, and we were trying to find one place. Like, there were a couple that were just straight up bars that were just serving beer and nothing else, and there are a couple.
How do you call yourself a city? Like, I don't understand it at all. Right? Like New York, you walk out of there at midnight and you've got 57 different options in a 10-minute walk. So. I don't get it. I thought the floor space was great. I wasn't there coaching. I was as a fan at that time. I was at Wyoming Seminary, but had great view, great. You're in the Garden, dude. Like, it's so awesome. And I mean, prices were a little bit higher, but that's the price you pay. Like I said, every other sport would kill to have opportunities to be in arenas like that. And we have a large section of our fan base that's like, it's New York City. I don't like New York City. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as a sports fan, being in the bowels of the arena, seeing the pictures on the wall of, all the famous games and events and concerts and whatever, it was kind of, I don't fanboy much anymore, but that was pretty freaking cool.
Yep.
Um, so let's go to 2018 and 2026 Cleveland. I know people like to give Cleveland a hard time, and I don't blame them, and I do it a little bit myself, but I didn't really have an issue. I thought that Cleveland was pretty decent as far as host city.
Yeah.
The venue was close to a lot of stuff. I know you had something behind the scenes wise. I know I've talked to you about as far as this year that was different from other years
In terms of,
in terms of where your athletes were in between sessions,
yeah, I
or
mean, yeah, generally speaking, I'm a Cleveland fan, for sure. The arena is it's good. It's got all of the kind of qualities that you want in terms of walkability and everything like that. But there's some challenges to it. Cleveland gets a bad rap, but there's some pretty good aspects to the city as well. Thought the hotel was walkable.
um, okay, 2019 Pittsburgh. Um, that one I know a lot of people are looking forward to because of the big fan base in that area of the state. It was a good arena. It was a tight one, if I remember correctly. Um, I probably didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, but it was not bad.
Pittsburgh's a rough city too if you haven't been there a lot because the walks are pretty good, and if you want to go do
Mm-hmm.
anything um, back towards the university or on the other side of the river, there's probably some type of transportation involved. I like the city. I've been to Steelers games there, go Bills, and I've been to Pirates games, but it's not the same cluster, of everything right there all together. There's decent hotels right there, but the restaurant scene in and around there is not great. There's a lot of walking, and it just feels different walking in there. Like I don't know, back to New York, but you walk 10 blocks in New York, you feel like you didn't even break a sweat yet, and you've seen a lot. You walk that same distance in some of the other cities, you're like in a cornfield. So it's Pittsburgh's cool. A lot of people can drive. We drove to Cleveland last year on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Probably West Point would drive to Pittsburgh again, like that. When you have a lot of your programs in the Northeast, if you can put it in a place where a lot of them can drive, especially ones that are hit by budget cuts or don't have the same, I mean, the NCAA reimburses you, but still, like their fans can drive, their parents can drive. I do think there's an advantage to that too. You save yourself a little bit of travel if you do it right, because you're not connecting flights and everything like that. So it could be a fact. I know, like a lot of times when it's in St. Louis, some like Oklahoma City, I saw them getting off a bus. You know what I mean? So like they like schools will drive if they can. A lot of coaches prefer that to flying, especially in the last 2 or 3 years with the proliferation of canceled flights and air travel being expensive and a little less reliable. So yeah.
In a different show, I'll talk about my drive to Oklahoma in 2010, legendary trip. Um, uh, Horrific, but great. Um, all right, I'm going to skip over 2020 in Minneapolis because we can talk about that later. 2022 is Detroit, as you mentioned. That was kind of one of my key gripes. I do think that the arena itself was probably the best one that I've been to. Nice, clean, a lot of cool features with the roof that's lighting up and changing colors. I think a lot
Okay.
have went there
Didn't
since then, but
didn't notice,
yeah.
coaching wise, but I mean, like I'm gonna give them credit in terms of it. Like if your arena is named after Little Caesars, you've probably been through a lot. You're probably in a city that adversity isn't new to you. The main sports entertainment facility is named after really bad chain pizza, but it is hot and ready. So,
Yeah.
great slogan. But man, like that's rough. Like you get to wake up every day and be like, man, Things are going really well for me this weekend. I'm going to go see a concert at the really, really bad $5 pizza arena. Um, it's got to be rough. Sorry to all my Michigan people, but yeah. Um, and as I mentioned before, everything they roll up the streets pretty early in Detroit. So yeah,
Yeah,
maybe they have to. I don't know. But it was not great. Hotel location distance was pretty far. And again, back to that, you walk that distance, you're not seeing a whole heck of a lot going on.
for sure. And speaking of 2023 Tulsa, so I was kind of upset about this one by the time before I even stepped foot in Oklahoma. Willie was actually ahead of the game and had a hotel or an Airbnb reserved like 8 months ahead of time. They canceled on him about 2 months out because they probably realized there was an event and they booted him, or they probably could have just got more money out of him. But anyhow, we scrambled to get hotels. Media hotels fell through, so Willie panicked and booked this one of those ones where you rent by the week, and he didn't even stay there the first night. You could tell our door had been kicked in at least once, and you could actually
Charged
see
hourly.
people walking by. Yeah, so it was pretty bad. But Tulsa itself was one where you had some nice stuff close and walkability, but just not the volume of it. So you had crazy waits and everybody flocking to the same places.
I think like people in general, and they're gonna put a good face on it and enjoy it. Most people I talked to were like miserable while they were in Tulsa,
Mhm.
that were there. And we had a stretch. It was really, really bad weather, but like, yeah, it's just not set up for it. Like a crowd that big, that is going to be, maybe if you just go down there for a concert or something and then go back, you're probably not spending as much time in the general area, but it's just not set up for it. And the thing that I noticed about Tulsa, and again, back on my New York, people are going to hate me for this one, but New York gets a bad rap and this and that and the other thing. I never saw so many homeless people per capita than I did in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Like, not even close. Like, stepping over them multiple times on the walk from the hotel to the arena. So I think that's every city problem, right? But I think some cities do a better job keeping them out of it. It was shocking to me because I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I did forget, of course, that it's the rough area. I didn't see any greasers or socias because that was absent from my recollection of the old S.E. Hinton Classic was set in Tulsa. So I was kind of expecting, am I going to see Ponyboy Curtis here? Am I going to see some greasers? I didn't, but I did see a lot of homeless people. And it would be my strong preference to not ever go back to Tulsa for a major championship again. I'm sure it's great for the Big 12,
I went for the National
Yeah,
Duels
yeah,
Invitational. It was
yeah,
perfect for
yeah,
that.
yeah. I'm sure it
Um,
is. So I think that's a different event and it's a
yeah,
different scenario and it's certainly a different crowd. And I'm sure there are a lot of things about the arena that are very like advantageous to some of the teams that utilize it. Sure, it's easy to run weigh-ins there and things like that. But I'm not sure if it's set up for the NCAA championships. I mean,
you're
the
right.
the the place where they had the teams was like like uh, a mini Woodstock. It was like so many. Like, if COVID was still alive, it probably was exponential at that point. It was really, really bad. The pipe and drape down there.
Um, 2024. So if you're asking me about this entire list, I enjoyed Kansas City the most
Yeah.
on any of these. If you wanted to make that either, I guess I'd say maybe an every other year possibility where you have even years Kansas City and then you spread it around in the odd years, I would go for that. It was
Yeah.
it was
I'm I'm
easy to
I'm like
get
a
to.
realist. I'm a
Yeah.
realist. I think Kansas City and St. Louis are great sites.
Mhm.
For all the reasons that we talked about. Obviously, like I said, the Garden is the mecca of sports, but it's just not an attractive enough event to have the Garden be interested in it all the time. But St. Louis and Kansas City, you can't go wrong. You really can't. Kansas City impressed me. The city itself, and then just the way that they ran the arena. Some challenges. We got to figure out what we're doing with the size of the tournament, which we talked about on here before, right? And what makes an acceptable arena, which I'm sure we'll talk about as we look at other host cities, for those types of things. But I liked Kansas City a lot.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites. So, looking next, we got St. Louis. We talked about that a bit.
Yep.
It's been a few years since actually fans have been there now, so you probably have a new generation of people that haven't really been there so much. 2028, we've got Minneapolis at US Bank Stadium. What are your thoughts on this one?
I assume I'll probably go. Curiosity is my thought. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're gonna hurt for floor space, but how's it gonna go? Like, I don't know, like it's so new. And then you just add in the layer of like fans getting cheated out of it during the COVID year and the anticipation that that's going to build. I'm pumped. I have fears and concerns of it being in a huge stadium like that, but if they can pull it off, that opens up a whole new, class of venues that could work and change the way NCAA is run. If it plays well there's a whole lot of other places that we can go that might be interested in us too. So it's like new world to me, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I don't mind stepping out of our comfort zone and trying something new. And if it works, great. If not, we learn and know for the future. So, so I had went back and looked. It looked like October 2024 was when they announced those two sites. And that was 3 years out. So I imagine October 26 we'll get some new sites.
Yeah.
So as far as talking about prospective sites, one thing people need to know, you need to have a bid. A host city has to want it. So you and I and fans can say they want it in, Florida till we're blue in the face. But if Florida doesn't want it, no organizations or cities in Florida don't want it, then it's not going to happen.
You must have been on Twitter recently, right? Or like, are we going to do the whole? Maybe we'll do a show where like all of the schools that should have a wrestling program, tweet that gets recycled. The three worst ideas on Twitter are in order. One, this school should reestablish wrestling. I can't believe they don't want it. Well, they don't,
if they wanted to, they would.
That's one. Number two is we need to have all divisions represented at the Division I wrestling championships. That's probably a worse idea. Just doesn't get tossed around as much. And then the other one is, why aren't the NCAAs at, Croton or Cornwall on the Hudson, because it'd be really convenient for me. So, those are the three worst ideas ever discussed on Twitter.
All right. So before I wrote down some cities, do you have anything in mind, your optimal or ideal places you would like to see it? Okay. Actually, before we get to that, just one thing generally, before we get to Minnesota and the Vikings Stadium, for the most part, these arenas have all had a hockey configuration because of that. Floor space is, what we need to get 8 mats out there. So that's generally what they look at as hockey arenas. So go ahead.
I'd love to see it in New England, Boston.
Yeah.
I think that would be awesome. Got some infrastructure there. You got some colleges that could quote unquote host it. Not that that means all that much, but it's a good wrestling area. So I would love to see that happen. It's not going to be walkable, by the arena, but it's easy public transportation and lots to do there. So that would be cool. DC.
Yes.
Just why not, right? Like if we're talking major markets and major arenas, that would be a good area. to have it as well. I know there are some parts where, like, the Research Triangle, North Carolina, Raleigh, kind of Durham area might not make the standards that the NCAA has set. At least I've heard that in the past. I've never
Yes,
really investigated it, but
that's what I've been told as well.
yeah, great arena, growing fan base. Not going to be walkable. Hotels might get stressed. You might be having people stay 20, 30 minutes away, which isn't ideal. But yeah, Orlando, you know,
Mhm.
I think would be cool too.
Yeah, as far as Raleigh, I was told that the hotel situation wasn't great from the NCAA standpoint, and um, back in the early 2000s and before that, lots of them were on college campuses, and they've looked to move away from that. And
Yeah,
I think technically the hockey arena is on NC State's campus. Is that a thing?
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
I think you're right. Yep.
yeah,
Mhm.
but I do know that people have put in a word for Charlotte, like as being
Mhm.
a legit place to have it, which I would be interested for whatever reason. I'm not super familiar with the city, even though it's not that far from me.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it either, but I think if you have a basketball team or a hockey team, you probably have the close to a right-sized arena. It's just going to come down to what's the hotels look like there.
Mhm.
Is where we got in trouble with Tulsa, right?
Yeah.
It's not built. The city's not built to host major events at their arena.
I'm going to throw out a couple for you. Arlington, Texas. So I went to the bout at the ballpark at the Texas Rangers Stadium a couple
Yep.
years ago, and I was told that that was kind of like a test for them bidding on what the NCAA tournament could look like. So in a baseball stadium is kind of a happy medium between hockey and football as far as you know you're not having 100,000 seat stadium, but
Yeah.
it's a little bigger than hockey.
I mean, if the metrics and the optics look good in Minnesota, then why not, right? Texas, I've had good experiences going to Texas for World Team trials for Body Bar, back there. So like it's a good sports state, and the general kind of areas around there are probably new expansion, newly built. That's what I like about Raleigh and that area too. Is there's so much new going in there that it's kind of good for our fans to kind of get in there and check that out. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I want to see what it looks like at a bigger stadium first. So yeah.
Yeah, and as far as the infrastructure goes, right around that is there are a bunch of new hotels
Yep.
and restaurants and stuff like that, and then even a mile away there are a bunch of both. So
Yeah.
that definitely wouldn't be a problem there.
Hmm.
So I wrote one city on here on my little show notes, and I know if you checked them beforehand, you probably looked at it and said this dude has lost his marbles. He's freaking crazy. But next week will be the third year in a row, or third time that Final X has been in Newark, New Jersey, and I know for a fact from talking to the building managers and people high up that they love wrestling. They want more. They have UFC there at the Prudential Center, and they want NCAs to come there. Now, I don't think that it's the best idea in the world. I don't think it's even a very good idea. But as I said before, you have to have people who want it, first of all. So, yeah, cook for me.
You've been there.
Yeah, 3 times, I think.
Okay. I
I
love
don't think it's a good idea. Yeah.
my Jersey peeps. I love you. All right. Um, Final X is going to draw what, 5,000-6,000 fans?
Yeah, probably.
Is that probably right?
Probably.
Yeah. Nah, dude, like, you can't put it there. It would be cool. Everyone would be getting some really good breakfast sandwiches. Have you walked around there?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, there's an alley behind the building with like 3 sports bars, and then you go any further than that. Like, I'm not one that's really worried about personal safety, but for the people who are worried about personal safety, I can understand why that might be an issue any farther from the building.
yeah, it's like, I mean, if you need to get your tire changed, it's going to be good, right? Like it's there's a couple restaurants and a lot of auto body shops and no, dude. Uh No, sorry. And I'm generally speaking like, hey, bring it to the Northeast every single time, and let's get some of that flavor. And Jersey is a great place. I mean, it's New York's little brother, but it's still a great place. But you can't have the NCAAs at the Prudential Center. No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, I didn't, and to be honest, some of the New Jersey people I've thrown that out to have said the same thing. So
Yeah.
they're not at I don't know.
There's good events that you could host there.
Yeah.
Like if we start moving around, something like National Do It Like that's appropriate.
Mhm.
That something like that. The grapple at the garden, like there like events like that could be cool. But NCAAs, no, sorry.
No, that's cool. That's what I was thinking. But again, I knew they were interested, so
Sorry,
yeah.
Jersey.
And then just a couple others I threw out there, like Vegas, Atlanta, Florida. Um, those are ones on kind of these dream destinations.
Yeah,
Phoenix. Again, I have no idea whether these areas are interested in doing it.
Vegas would have a New York feel to it, right? I bet you we
Mhm.
could do
Yeah.
it
Oh,
there,
yeah.
but I don't know if I mean there's so many other events going there. I don't know if they're in a hurry to do that, but it would be another one of those scenarios where like the town could really give a crap if the NCAA wrestling
Mhm.
championships are there. But and I've never been in that arena, not yet at least. So I think people would have the same complaints there that they have about New York.
Yeah.
But I'm down. Cheap flights. Atlanta, I don't know the specs down there, but I mean, great area. Would love to see a successful event being held in the southeast for sure. What was the other one you said?
Um, just Florida in general, or like
Yeah,
Phoenix.
yeah. Has it been? It's been in Arizona, right? But that was back at a college campus kind
I
of
think so.
situation.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
I think I'm not sure before my time, but who wouldn't want to go to Arizona in the you know
Mhm.
changing of the seasons in the Northeast? It sounds awesome. But I don't know the logistics of it enough to know. I can tell you that I wouldn't. They did a nice job hosting the women's world team trials for a while, but I'm hopeful that the Spokane experiment is over. I don't think that would be appropriate. Seattle, Spokane area was pretty hard to get to, so that's a big disadvantage of the West Coast, right? Is there's a small group of teams that it would be really, really good for, but everybody else is kind of inconvenienced, and that sucks. It's probably not fair, but it's going to have to be a knock it out of the ballpark venue and city and everything around it for it to go towards the West Coast, I would think.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I like Atlanta. I've been there a couple times for events and enjoyed it. Major city.
Yeah,
Good.
make
Yeah.
it happen, Earl. Make
Yeah.
it happen.
Okay.
I had to be around a lot of Braves fans though, so it ain't going to be any fun.
Yeah. No, that's why I wanted in DC. I like y'all co-sign your DC idea.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you probably want to put it in Montreal.
No, 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 no. Um, all right. I know you have to get running. So, is there anything else about the topic that we haven't hit on?
I think we settled it. If New York will have us, we'll go there every year. And in lieu of that, give me a lot of St. Louis and a lot of Kansas City, and let's sprinkle it in and see how some other stuff goes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm down for that as well. All right, everybody. Thanks for supporting us, and remember to what's your deal? Like,
Like,
subscribe.
comment, subscribe.
There you
Like,
go.
comment, subscribe, and let's get some questions for the mail. The mailbag is hopping. It is lit, as the kids these days say. So
That's right.
let's continue to bring some good questions so that you can hear some smart assery from me every Friday morning.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
See ya.